Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope everybody is having a wonderful day. We're going to be talking about what we're seeing in the market, a decent amount of buying pressure across the board. Some of the biggest stocks that we see moving are Palantir, Tesla, and NVIDIA, and a decent amount of green momentum across the broader market that we've seen with the big indexes. One of the big things that we're seeing in terms of causing this actual kind of flip in the market in terms of buying pressure is the whole uncertainty with those tariffs. Remember the reciprocal tariffs that were set to take place April 2nd. We now see the administration coming out and saying, hey, the strictness of those actual tariffs is not going to be as full force as what was once anticipated. And we're seeing the market that is starting to kind of ignore this whole word and the trade war on all the tariffs, and is starting to kind of just basically go on with its own behavior. So before we get too far, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, not a financial advisor, collecting the data and dispatching it to you. Now, if you pop it up on the screen here, Palantir is sitting at right now, market close, 96.75. And what we see in the actual overnight hours for Palantir is kind of consolidating down about 40 cents, sitting at 96.36 right now as we speak. Now, Palantir having a good green day, up about 6 to nearly 7% on the day, a decent amount of trading volume, is now going to be testing this resistance point right at about that $100. This resistance point basically opened up here after we saw this push and this gap that was created from the 84 up to the 100 here, which is what pushed Palantir to this all-time high of this 125 area. After we saw the uncertainty with the tariffs and kind of a correction across the market, that's where we saw Palantir get pushed back down here to the 80s and was able to find a support and a reversal at the grounding at about 75 right here. So Palantir, if we see green bullishness that continues on throughout this week, could easily be testing this resistance point of the $100 here. If it gets past that, that's where we could see, I think, re-entry into this mid-$100 zone. And with that, joining the tech sector rally on Monday, we're seeing a lot of bullishness and bullish articles that are being released. Typically, this is what happens in terms of either direction that Palantir is going. If we see Palantir that is climbing in the green direction, lots of bullish articles will follow, and vice versa. If we see a correction, all of a sudden, all the articles come out talking about its valuation. Talking about that, though, Palantir analysts talking about governmental spending cuts hurting contractors like Palantir. I personally disagree with that. We've seen some different outlooks, analysts disagreeing with that, and that is because I think they could actually be a benefactor in this DOGE governmental defense kind of budget cuts, because they can bring AI solutions to these governmental contracts, to these different types of sectors. By wherever they're going to cut waste, Palantir can go in there to fulfill that void, fulfill that gap by bringing AI to help reduce waste, improve efficiency and productivity. So we see the tech-heavy NASDAQ here that is up. Palantir analysts talking about here buying the stock at a recent dip. This could be a potential decent reversal here for Palantir, especially on Monday. The rebalancing of the S&P right here, also announced earlier this month, went into effect. Palantir being among the group of companies that was actually added to the S&P 100. So in the S&P 500, in the NASDAQ 100, and now in the S&P 100, Palantir is doing very well today. One of the big reports that helped push this was the narrowing of the focus on this April 2nd, what they call Liberation Day from the administration, tariffs being sent the stock market sharply higher on Monday. Getting into that, this article on CNBC here talks more about how the Dow jumped and what the meaning of the narrowing of the scope of the tariffs actually means. We see the S&P come up about 1.7%, NASDAQ 2.27% respectively here. Stocks really jumping on the optimism right here, basically holding back on the implementation of some of these wide-ranging tariff plans, so the U.S. could skirt basically on economic slowdown. Shares of Tesla also popping up right here, and recession, talking about this, the potential rise for inflation and recession ahead of April 2nd. That was uplifted on reports with the narrowing scope. He said specifically quotes, a lot of countries here are going to be getting breaks on reciprocal tariffs. So we really don't know what's going to be happening here, what's going to be happening at the end of the day, because we have these threats that are put out there and then things are taken back. We see delays in these tariffs. Also told the press following a cabinet meeting that levies on sectors such as pharma, autos, they're still going to be coming here in the near future, essentially confirming that they're not going to be part of this early April 2nd rollout. So market conditions are improving dramatically amongst the angst around reciprocal tariffs. And I think they're kind of getting just sick of hearing the word tariffs. And I think the markets are going to start to operate independently of the word tariff, or not have basically that much of a reliance on that word until we actually see some things that are more concrete in nature. Excuse me, still getting over my cough because I was sick last week. Basically, I think they're going to still continue until things are more concrete in nature, like I had mentioned. With these concerns that were exacerbated basically by weakening consumer sentiment, this Friday we do have the PCE data that will be released. So talking about some of the other stocks here that are actually highly in the green that we've talked about, Tempest up 14%, nearly 15% on the day, already back to $59. We see HIMS up here about 7%. Big Bear coming up about 20% at $350 right now. Is a lot of buying pressure with a lot of stocks that we've been talking about. Tesla having a decent rebound here. Specifically where Tesla sits at is at 278. Now, Tesla had a nice reversal at about that 218. One of the big components that helped pop Tesla today, extending on Friday's gains, is that there is actually a meeting here from Tesla. And Elon Musk tells Tesla employees to hang on to their stock. Talking about that, Musk actually argued that Wall Street doesn't fully understand Tesla's value and potential based on expected advances in its self-driving software and other products like its Optimus robot. So the fact that he actually told their employees in an all-hands-on meeting here to hang on to their stock, we're seeing shares popping up about 10% to $272. On top of that, looking across the board here, surprising news in China on March 24th today. Tesla also said in its Weibo account that it's actually going to be launching full self-driving in China once it wins a regulatory okay for over-the-air software updates. Now, this full self-driving trial between March 17th and April 16th, that was when it was previously planned. Regulations requiring the approval update were introduced in February, causing speculation. So this is good news here that it's saying that once it wins the actual regulatory okay, this is going to be beneficial, and they can start rolling out these over-the-air software updates in terms of China, in terms of Tesla and their relations there. So two kind of big key things there. Elon saying, hey, Wall Street is undermining the actual effect that Tesla is going to be happening and how its stock is going to be reacting to its future and its expected advances, and telling basically employees to hang on to their stock. You also have NVIDIA, AMD doing very well today. NVIDIA increases its market cap by a decent amount, basically almost back to $3 trillion at $121 today, up about 3% as they lead the chip stock rally, basically as those semiconductor tariff worries now continuing to ease. You see here the move. Reports after the White House may not announce tariffs targeting the semiconductor industry. That was one of the big worries for these chip stocks. They had a rough start to 2025 amid the actual tariff worries, as well as concern about the company's commitment to investing in AI infrastructure. So AMD's popping up about 8%, NVIDIA up about 3%. So basically across the board with this rally that we're seeing, tech rally that's leading this rally today is just due to the fact that we're not seeing as much strictness and as much wide scope, I want to say, harboring on the tariffs that were once anticipated. However, talking about future rollouts and still some reciprocal tariffs that will be happening on April 2nd. So what do you make of all this? What do you make of all this tariffs? Do you think the market is starting to trade independently? of the tariffs, and where do you see Palantir here in the near future? You think it'll cross the 100? Peace out, take care, and I'll catch you guys later.